Okay, finally we'll do confidence interval on the difference of two proportions. I'm going to start with the two proportion test. So I'll open that, and I'm in projector mode. So here's my two proportion test. The reason I started with that is because I needed all that stuff anyway. And so here is confidence interval. Okay, so confidence interval. Oh yeah, and remember to save it as something different, so I can go up here, click on the title, save this graph, duplicate this graph with a different name, and hit save. Again, I'm not going to do that, but you should do that. Now, once again, just like when we did the single proportion, I'm going to make this a little wider. We don't have a hypothesis, right? We don't have a null and alternative hypothesis, so we just get rid of that. But we still need all that data. P hat is still the difference of those two proportions. We don't have a p-value anymore, so I get rid of that, and we just need a standard error and alpha lines. Okay, so we go to that. Now, because this is data, we're just taking data for the difference of the two proportions. We have no real reason to believe that those should be zero, or that so that they're coming from the same population or anything. We're not making that expectation whatsoever, and so we don't need this pooled estimate for the proportion. So I'm going to get rid of that. And now, if you didn't do this the first time, if you had left it as, let me get rid of that. If you had left it as, whoops, this over N1, I'll copy that and add, whoops, missed, try it again. There we go. If you had left it this way, that would be probably the easiest thing, because now what we need to do is change this to P1 and a P1, so we take its variance estimate and the other one's variance estimate. We put those together, and I don't remember exactly what the standard error was before. It was really close to this, but it wasn't exactly that. And so there's our standard error. And now I might as well, I'll do my margin of error again. So M sub E, do the little subscripting, come back with that arrow, and then do my 1.96 times the standard error. And so I have that. Now the normal distribution, yeah, it's that standard error, but it needs to be centered at p hat. Okay, so we have that. And then again, when we find those bounds, they have to be centered at our observation here of p hat and p hat, and that's what we need. I'm going to get rid of all these other things that we don't need anymore. So get rid of those, and there are my bounds. Oh, these are different colors. I don't know if that was that way to start with. I guess maybe they were, I don't know. But I'll make those both black so I can see them really well. And And there we have it. We have the distribution from our data. And notice that 0 is within our confidence interval. And so for these data, when you think about a hypothesis test, if you were doing that two-sided hypothesis test for the difference of these proportions, this confidence interval shows me that, yes, I would expect to not reject H0 because the confidence interval contains 0, which is the null hypothesis for our hypothesis test. But again, if, say I take this down to 5, and change this to 20. I'm thinking back in the last video, I'm not sure I did something like that, but I'm not sure I changed the N2. So, you got to be careful. Maybe, I'll change that to 25 and back to 30. 0's still in there. So maybe make that 35, and this now is 40. 0 is still in there, so probably a null hypothesis. My hypothesis test would still say it. So it's got to be even more lopsided than that. So finally, if I take it up to 45 and 50, see there, 0 is outside of my confidence interval. Most likely, if I ran my hypothesis test with these data, I would reject the null hypothesis. Again, you got to be a little careful there with proportions because the standard error is made just ever so slightly differently, whether you're doing a confidence interval or a test of the two proportions. So yeah, you got to be, like I say, you got to be a little careful on that. And I'll take these back to what I had, the 15 and the 15. And there we have it. There we've made our confidence interval. I can look at the margin of error, what I'm adding on each side of the difference of the proportions p hat, and I can actually get those values here, and I do see it contains 0. So once you do that, then again, you want to save. Make sure you're saving to your new name. If I just hit save, this will overwrite what I had before, so you want to click on the name, make sure you're saving to the right name, and there we have it. So we've got yet another template.